Having difficulties understanding the different metering modes in your camera? Let's make that easy. By the end of this video, it's going to come to you organically. You won't think about it. You will choose the best metering mode that suits your style and works with your audience. Hey guys, this is Ejaz. I'm a fashion and a wildlife photographer. After shooting fashion for so many years, fashion magazines, designers, shooting a lot of fine art wildlife photography, I have to tell you that we must make photography easy, simple, not so challenging and not so difficult. So if we try and simplify things in our brain first, everything else will fall in place. Don't you want to just focus on the emotions of your image instead of messing around with all the different settings, the metering modes you have on your camera? Let's make photography easy. Before we get into different metering modes on your camera and complicate your minds even more, let's first try to understand why we need to meter. So the reason why I meter is because I want to get a measurement of my subject so I can show to my audience what I want them to see. So they can emotionally get attached to your images. That is the main purpose why I use my measuring of light through either meters or with my camera. Do we meter when we are taking photographs with our iPhones? No, I don't meter. And I think the photographs there are absolutely amazing. But why don't I meter? Because I'm not taking the iPhone photograph to create art out of that, or to be able to sell my images, or take the photograph and put it on my website. I'm not, right? What does that really mean? What it means to me is that when I'm a photographer, not with my iPhone, but a photographer with a camera, then my job is to direct the audience's eye to the thing I want them to see. How am I going to do that? I do that by making the main subject brighter and everything else around it darker. Or the other way around, make everything else brighter and make the subject darker. And in order for me to change and manipulate all of that, I need to know what is dark and what is light. And the only way I'm going to find out is by metering. So I meter the subject and I say, okay, great, my subject is at XYZ. Meter the background is at XYZ. I meter the side, this is at a different measurement, this is at a different measurement. Now let's go change things, put different spots, different lights, blah, blah, blah. And you have it. Life done, right? Fashion done. I'm done. Like, look at this image. Where do you think I was wanting my audience to look at? At the model. Look at this one, right? The same story. Nothing has changed. The shoot has changed, but it's not changed. Now look at this one. This is not changed either. But now here is something I'm going to show you that will totally make you think. Look at this wildlife image. Where is your focus? Your focus is on the subject. Why? Because the background is not where I want you to focus. I want you to focus on the subject. Okay, now let's look at this one. Let's look at this one. I can bring you images over images over images over images over images, and all of them have the same exact theme. Either the subject is super dark or the subject is super bright, and that is where you're focusing. Now let's talk about the different modes of metering. When you do evaluative metering, the camera measures light, your entire frame, and then it sums it up and says, this is what you shoot with, and your measurements are going to be fine. Your photograph is going to be fine. But is this what you want? I don't want this. I see the problem with that is there is no direction on the light, meaning I cannot do much. It mushes everything up as far as I'm concerned. There's no direction. I am not the brightest, or my model is not going to be the brightest, or my subject is not going to be the brightest. How am I going to change that? It's doing that kind of a thing where it's saying 2 plus 2 equals 4, great. But as artists, we know 2 plus 2 equals 10 for me. But in any case, so that is what evaluative metering is. So if you want a photograph that is technically perfect, use evaluative metering. You'll be fine with it. Absolutely fine. Camera these days are like computers. You are going to be perfectly fine. You get an image back, but there will not be much of a direction, I think. Now, if you take a center weighted metering mode, wherever you point the center of your frame, that is where it's going to make it perfect exposure. Everything else, the camera doesn't care, because the camera doesn't have the brain to think what you want the audience to see, right? So it only uses the middle. And then there is spot metering, my favorite. And the reason why it's my favorite is because I can measure the back, measure the side, I can measure my face, I can measure anywhere in my frame, and then I can make up my mind in terms of what is more important. Of course, if I'm shooting myself the way it is right now, the way you see it, my face is more important. So I am going to make my face brighter, or I'm going to make my face super dark by lifting everything up. How do I do that? I do that by taking different measurements all over my frame. You're going to argue and you're going to say, hey, how can you do that in wildlife? Here's how I do it. Is it right? I don't know. Is it wrong? I don't know. Does it work for me? Yeah, and I think it's very simple. So my subjects are not always standing over there posing for me, right? The horses are not there at times, the leopards are not there at times, not at times, but they're never there, or the Arctic wolf is never there. So what do I do? Now, if my subject is not there, but I know I want my subject to be the brightest or the darkest, I'm going to measure the background, correct? I'm going to measure everything else that there is around my frame. Like if there's a tree, I'm going to measure that. If there is grass, I'm going to measure that. I'm going to measure mountains. I'm going to measure everything. And then I'm going to say to myself, okay, now I have a subject that's going to come in. I've got 2.8 here. I've got 5.6 here. I've got this here. I've got that here. I want my subject to be the brightest. How am I going to make it brightest? By just simply saying, what is my brightest spot? Because I've taken different spot measurements, and I'm going to make it even brighter. I mean, isn't that simple as that? The goal here is to be the photographer, the director of the frame, the director of the photograph. You want to help your audience in seeing where you want them to see. You want to help your audience to see what you want them to see. So make it easy for them. Make it brightest, make it darkest, whatever you want to do. But the only way you're going to do that is not by mushing up all the measurements with evaluative metering, not by center weighted metering, unless you always shoot people in the middle. But I think you'll do it more with spot metering. Spot metering linked to your focusing point. If you're spot metering on the focusing point, whatever you point your focusing point to, the bird's eye, the animal's face, the model's nose, that is what it's going to measure. And it's going to measure a very small part of that. And that's what I want. I don't want to measure the entire face. I want that small part, because what is more important? The eye. I want to know what the measurement of the eye is. What is more important? The entire model. I want to know the measurement of the model because I can play with it. I can make her brighter. I can overexpose her a little bit, right? To drop everything else in the background. And that will only come with spot metering. I've been doing this for a very, very long time. And there's one practice that I do on a very regular basis, is whenever I buy a new camera, or wherever I've been given a new camera, I change my metering mode to spot metering at my focusing point, and it stays there, it lives there until I give the camera back or the camera breaks. Either one of them. It never ever changes. And I have survived so many years with just that one metering mode. I don't ever go into the field and say, I'm going to do spot metering and then I'm going to do evaluative metering because the light is getting darker or it's getting brighter. Too much work. Let's make life simple. Too much work. If you choose spot metering, you measure what you have to measure. If the subject is not there, measure the surroundings and open it up from the brightest spot. From the brightest spot, open it up a little bit more. Everything else is going to fall into place, and that's that. Now, you'll say to me, what if my subject gets blown out because of that? Move and move, right? We have the capability of moving. So if you think that your subject is going to get blown out because you're doing spot metering everywhere and then you're opening it up, then move. Make your background darker by moving. Choosing a tree to be the background so it becomes darker. Choosing a mountain. Choosing whatever so the background becomes darker. But spot metering will give you that direction in your frame. So you can help your audience. Don't you want to do that? Let's cover this one last time really quickly. Spot metering, my choice. Evaluative metering, not my choice, but it's there for you if you don't ever want to make a mistake. Center weighted metering, same story. You won't make a mistake and you will focus on everything that's in the middle, and it'll give you perfect exposure in the middle, not the sides. It's not a bad thing at all, but you will be restricted by taking your subject and putting it in the middle at all times. If you want to frame it somewhere here, the 1/3 rule, you will be off again, right? So spot metering, guys, as far as I'm concerned, 3 modes to think of. I mean, there are many other metering modes, but 3 modes to think of. Make it simple for yourself. Do the spot metering. You're done. You don't have to make things complicated. You are done. I hope this was helpful. I hope that you guys switch to spot metering. And I hope you guys send me images and say, hey, just look, I switched to spot metering and look, my image looks so much better. It looks artistic. I'm directing my audience's eye where I want them to see. Anyway, guys, I hope this is helpful. I will see you guys soon. Thank you for coming to my channel and watching and spending time with me. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.